Hello! I hope everyone's having an amazing day as usual. You know, I got to thinking today about my most important core value, the thing that is most important to me in my life. And that is, if you didn't know already, is adventure. That is my ultimate core value. And I got to thinking about that value today. I got to thinking about adventure today because in 2 weeks, I am fulfilling a lifelong dream of living in another country entirely. In 2 weeks, I'm going to Adelaide, South Australia to live for at least 6 months. And I'm super fired up about it, and it's definitely going to satiate that adventure that I have inside of my heart. It's going to satiate that feeling of adventure and wanderlust that I've had since I was a kid, and I'm really excited about that. But in thinking about that today, I got to thinking about what adventure really means to me and why it's so important in my life and why it's become so important in my style of coaching. See, adventure isn't just traveling, it isn't hiking, it isn't swimming with the sharks, it isn't base jumping, it isn't any of that to me. More so than any of that, I believe that adventure is an attitude. I believe that adventure is a way in which we view the world, a way in which we're engaged in the world, a way in which we show up in the world. Somebody who has an adventurous spirit is willing and ready to stretch their comfort zone, dive into their fears, and face their challenges head on, never to run away from them. To have a spirit of adventure, in my opinion, isn't just about collecting stamps in a passport. It isn't just about jumping out of planes. It isn't just about catching big waves, and it isn't just about climbing big mountains. That's a part of it, and that's an element that I love about adventure. But more importantly, adventure to me represents how somebody shows up in the world. An adventurous spirit is how engaged somebody is into the world and how engaged they are into overcoming their fears and living a life of total fulfillment and purpose. See, we all have, every single one of us, we have challenges that we're facing right now. Now the question is, are we overcoming our challenges, or are we doing like most people do, and are we running away from our challenges? See, what most of us do is we have a challenging moment in our life, and we think of 1,000,001 ways on how to avoid that challenge. We think of 1,000,001 ways on how to avoid that fear in our lives. But what happens as a result of constantly running away from those fears? Constantly running away from those challenges? Life doesn't become less challenging. I'd have you consider that it becomes more challenging. Think of the challenge that's consuming you in your life right now. What does it feel like to really run away from that challenge constantly? I bet there's a perpetual state of anxiety, of wanting it to go away. And we think what's going to happen is life is going to become less challenging as a result of just ignoring it and running away. But that's not what happens. Life becomes more challenging because we haven't embraced that adventurous spirit and dove into it and tackled it. See, I believe deep down, that every challenge we ever face in our life is actually a call to a great adventure. It's just up to us to open our eyes and view it through that lens. Think about the challenge that you're facing in your life right now. What is it? How is it consuming you? How are you running away from it? What's happening as a result of ignoring it and not going toe-to-toe with that challenge or that problem? What's happening in your life? Now, what if that challenge that you're facing in your life right now, the one right now in your life, was actually a beautiful adventure in disguise, begging you to come play? How differently would you approach that challenge? How differently would you approach that fear in your life? You see, when we cultivate that adventurous spirit that's right there in our heart, we don't run away from our challenges. And life doesn't become more challenging and more difficult by running away from it. But when we have that adventurous spirit and we let it come out and play and run free, when we unleash that wild thing in our heart, we don't let our challenges or our fears run our lives. We don't let our circumstances control us, but instead, we control our circumstances. Because when we are engaged in the adventure of life, life very easily becomes an engaging adventure. Now you can take this adventurous spirit and you can apply it to your challenges in life and going head to toe with them, saying that's a big mountain I gotta climb. Now what we can either do is we can run away from that mountain and never have climbed it, or instead, we can choose to put one step in front of the other. There's a great commercial that I loved back in the day. It was the Travelocity Gnome. And I'll never forget this. He said, it was a Running of the Bulls commercial, and he said, "You'll never survive the running of the bulls if you don't go running with the bulls." See, that's the adventure of life, is facing that fear and doing it anyway. And on the other side of that, when we climb that mountain, when we go running with the bulls, we learn that that fear that was holding us back, that challenge that was holding us back, was usually nothing more than an unfounded concept of our imagination, that all it did was really prevent us from living fully. We can approach this adventure of life and embrace that adventurous spirit by going toe-to-toe with our challenges. We can embrace that adventurous spirit by diving into our fears and living more fully as a result. And we can ask ourselves, what is it deep down in our heart of hearts that we really want out of our lives? What is really calling to us to live? Who is that person that I ultimately want to become at my highest self? Who is that? And why aren't I there yet? Why haven't I stepped into that yet? And what happens if I really embrace that adventurous spirit and really take the first step into that dream? To take the first step into that ambition, to take the first step into that goal. What would that first step be? Just one step, if I really embraced that adventurous spirit. See, the way that I see life is that we can either let life happen to us, becoming a result of life circumstances, or we can take charge of our lives. We can define the direction that we want to go in our lives, not by being a result of our circumstances, but instead by being a response to our circumstances. And we do that by cultivating the adventurous spirit. Adventure and being adventurous, that's an attitude. And when we cultivate that adventurous spirit, that's how we begin to show up in the world in a very powerful, meaningful, passionate, and purposeful way. So what does it mean to you to really step into that adventure of life? Is adventure, whether it's traveling the world or starting a business, or whether that's whatever goals you are, is that adventure that's in your heart? Is that something that you're running away from? Or is that something you're willing to step into? See, there's an abundance out there in the world. There's an abundance of experience. There's an abundance of prosperity. There's an abundance of people to meet. There is an abundance of adventure out there in the world, one way or another. And in the end of the day, when we're looking back, telling the story of our lives at our 95th birthday to our hopefully great-grandchildren, we'll realize that we had nothing to lose, absolutely nothing to lose, and an entire world of experience to see. So what's stopping you from escaping the ordinary and embracing and stepping into the extraordinary? To live an adventurous and extraordinary life, we must first become adventurous and extraordinary people. Now the question is, are you willing to leave what's behind in order to make room for what's ahead of you? You guys, adventure awaits, baby. You guys, thank you so much for watching this one. This is a topic that is completely near and dear to my heart, very clearly, very obviously. If you guys like this video, give it a like right there. Leave a comment. Let me know what you thought about this video down there. And if you really like this video, hit that subscribe button right there. I post videos like this every single week. Always happy to deliver for you guys. You guys, all the best. Be good, be awesome, be great, and onwards and upwards, baby. Boom!